Middle of the night. Middle of the night live streams. This is like the second one in a row I've done, and I just could not sleep. I tried to do my usual sleeping thing, and there's just something about Todd. I don't know how many of you actually listened to Todd Chrisley's podcast this evening. Hey, Wisconsin. Hey, I Beth. That is just. I'm just sitting here over that live stream. So I just wanted to come that podcast. I just wanted to come on and ask everybody what they thought about it. I see that there are a couple of people. Hey, Small Town Jewel. Hey, Heather. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. I'm sorry, I took a Benadryl. Pretty crazy. I listened to it when it first came out, and I've just been kind of sitting here. I tried to go to bed. It didn't work. I'm laying up in the bed, and all I can do is think about this. I'm not a big Todd Chrisley fan. I'm just going to come right out and throw that out. I've shown a couple times that this man is just silly. But I'm kind of liking all this. I'm kind of enjoying watching it. Feels very Schadenfreude-like. Small Town Jewel, I am doing well. I apparently have kicked whatever that was. Yesterday, I had to take somebody to the airport. Pick up somebody from the airport. I came back. It was just sweaty and gross, and it was not fun. That's one thing I will say. I don't like going to the airport here because it's such a long, sitting there for so freaking long, waiting, because the airport in Liberia is stupid enough to have 6 gates and land a dozen planes at the same time. So you have to wait. And it's annoying if you're picking somebody up, or if you're waiting for your flight, or if you're trying to get off the flight. Every part about it is irritating. As irritating as watching for this. Between gasping and laughing, my husband kept asking me what I was listening to. Heather, my husband was the same. And it's kind of funny because my husband was dealing with some pretty serious news of family members that had COVID. And I was kind of like, don't even tell me about them. I don't even want to know. Just listening to this, jaw dropped. Seeing the silliness of Todd Chrisley on his show, I would have never have dreamed that he was going to be the one to take her down. Now, that other lawsuit for the same thing is still coming. What did Todd do today? Small Town Jewel, I don't even know how to describe what Todd did today. Todd Chrisley's Confessions, his podcast came out, and from 44-minute on, it was all KJ. It was all not very nice. I wrote down one quote that just had me laughing my ass off. If the shoe fits, put that beep on and walk it. That is just great. Like I said, I mistook him as just some silly little goofball. But I have to say, after listening to his podcast a couple times, this podcast and the earlier ones, she has really raised the ire of a sleeping giant. He's got a lot of money. He's got enough money to tie her up in court for a long time, to outspend her, to outweigh her, and it's personal with him. It's not him trying to flip her to get to Swanson like Tati Westbrook wanted to do. You're still having problems with it, Heather? Oh, long hauler. Heather, these are family members that have been vaccinated, so they had very light cases. So I'm not getting too excited about that. There are certain parts of the family I'm just kind of like, nope. Plus, listening to Todd kind of put that in my mind. Small Town Jewel, no, it's not on YouTube. What I'm going to do is, when I'm done here, I'm going to put a link in the description with a link to Todd's podcast. It's on Apple, it's on Stitcher, it's on what was the other one? There are a couple different podcasting platforms he's on. And the first part of the video, his podcast, he talks about his daughter's birthday it is. But when he moves into talking about his daughter Lindsay, which I was unaware that she was his daughter from his first marriage, and that there was a lot of bad blood between him and the ex-wife and the kids from the ex-wife, apparently. Yeah, there always is a lot of times when you have these blended families, there's going to be squishy, weird, lumpy things that come out. As much as we might all wish to hold hands and kumbaya, it doesn't always work out that way. I've had my experiences with that with my ex-husband. So, oh yes, Multangel, negative. They told us we had the flu. We had good old-fashioned influenza. And because I caught mine earlier than he caught his, the medicine worked, and I wasn't very sick for very long, but he's still dragging around. Yeah, they're all doing pretty well. And I'm sorry you're still having breathing issues and stomach problems, memory. Oh, that's not good, Heather. I hope that they can do something for that. That's the thing I'm really concerned about with COVID is the long haul of COVID. And that was one thing that's kind of interesting to listen to Chrisley. I don't know about you guys, but I watch stuff on YouTube. I watch a lot of like documentaries and history. And like one of the things that I've been watching is I have a new favorite called Midlife Crisis. Is a doctor in the UK. And I watched him a lot today because he was talking about the crisis in India with COVID and the different variants. And it's getting scary. And I know here we're having 2,000 cases a day easily. This is a country the size of Wisconsin with roughly the population of Wisconsin, which is way too much for a place our size. So we're getting pounded and tourism is open. So it's nice to be able to talk about something so incredibly silly as a reality TV star that's angry at a YouTuber. So there's that. I don't know what's going to happen with all of that. I think that Todd announced that he's going to be doing depositions, that they're going to Wisconsin to force KJ to sit for a deposition, and he will be there along with his attorneys. This is about to get very, very interesting because Tati Westbrook was removed completely 100%. Hey, Lisa, was it completely 100% removed from this? She let her lawyer do the thing, the infamous Salty. And she did not dirty her hands, but it's definitely different in this case. I would do small town Jewel. I would have the flu any day of the week before I would have COVID. At least I know how to recover from the flu mostly and what to do and to get drugs, antivirals to kill that off if possible. And it's getting scary again, Heather, everywhere. It's nice to have something else to think about and focus on instead of for that. That's for sure. But I got to tell you, I think I watched all of Midlife Crisis's videos today. I learned a lot. I didn't know this, but apparently when you fly, pressurized air makes you have lower blood oxygen levels. I've always wondered why when I fly, I get so goofy and sleepy and why I just pass out on the plane and I'm drooling everywhere and snoring and stuff. The oxygen levels are doing me in, apparently. So the next time I fly, and from now on when I fly, I'm bringing this. I'm bringing my blood oxygen level measurement thing that I use routinely here to see if I need to use my aspirin drugs. Oh, you looked up his net worth? Mermaid, I'm really not sure how much he's worth. Oh, Lisa, I'm sorry to hear that. It's in Southeast Virginia. It's here too. We have the Delta, we have Brazilian, and there's the Colombian strains that are here. And I think there's another one they said that they think is here. Heather, you have to if you have any kind of lung issues, this thing can help tremendously. So I'm curious as to how much money he does have left. He confirmed today that his daughter Lindsay was the one that started the ball rolling in the tax evasion trial. So he apparently, if I'm reading KJ's tweets right, he apparently has court tomorrow on some of the tax things. She's trying to claim that he can't sue her because of the tax evasion lawsuits or the tax lawsuits. That's not true at all. Anybody can sue anybody for anything in the US at any time they want, even if they're in jail, even if they're suspected of other things. That is not going to stop him from suing her. That could be. I don't know, Mermaid. I don't know what his net worth is. I think that he probably has a higher net worth than KJ is thinking. I mean, let's face it, he made his money in real estate, not reality TV. His reality TV money was, FU money as far as I'm concerned. He did say, hold my beer with her. So much of what comes out of her mouth is a provable lie. You're right, Heather. It's astounding, the lies she's used. I know, I can't believe it, particularly since you can easily go back and track her lies and say, hey, this is a lie. One of the ones that she was saying this week, she was saying that anybody used her real name, Catherine Paulson, was doxing her. No such thing. When she first signed up for Pathos, her first couple of columns were under Catherine Paulson. Later, a couple of days later, she changed to Katie Paulson. Then eventually she changed to Katie Joy. I remember having a long conversation with her about that. And she said the changes were necessary because she started getting death threats. Now, does that sound familiar or what? She's always run and scream death threats the minute she gets any kind of pushback whatsoever. So she has put her name out there. Her old blog was also under Catherine Paulson. So it's not like anybody is coming out with this stuff and throwing it out there. It's like everybody knows my name is Suzanne Titkemeyer because I wrote for Pathos for almost 10 years under my own name. And I still write occasionally under my own name and other pseudonyms. So there's that. So she can't claim that. And part of the thing that Chrisley is mad about is some of the Pathos articles that she wrote about Chrisley are pretty defamatory, particularly when she started talking about his sexuality. Nobody's sexuality is anybody else's business. I'm just going to come right out and say that. I don't care if you're in love with whatever, as long as there is consent, and willing partners, you're fine. Go for it. As long as you're not harming animals or small children, I'm fine with that too. Don't harm animals or small children. She said in the past that saying a name is not a dox. She changes her story all the time. She will cry death threats and harassment every time she gets in hot water. And that was the other interesting thing about Todd's thing. Apparently, she has claimed, she's now claiming that Todd is one of the email hacker, stalker types is sending her death threats. She's claiming he is harassing her via email. That's another claim of hers that comes out of the woodwork every time you turn around. And you're right, Heather. She does like talking about sexuality and other sex lives. It's creepy. I guess if you're not having it, all you can do is talk about everybody else's sex life. I first saw her around the Tati lawsuit, and so much was like deja vu because it's the same lies, same distractions, same manipulative ways. Mermaid in the ICU, girl, when I had to work with her at Pathos, it was the same tales. It was exactly the same tales. And she would occasionally throw out the death threat, the suicide threat. And here's the thing she's not getting about that. Anybody with half a brain has to take seriously suicide threats. Okay, now many people who throw out the threat like that are not serious, but you can't really sort who's serious and who isn't serious. So what you have to do is let trained professionals handle that and turn and ask law enforcement to do a well check on the person. Now, she gets really angry when people do that, but you cannot be saying those type of things that you're going to kill yourself. Because if you do, of course, people are going to naturally, they're going to call law enforcement and ask that they do a well check on you. That's what decent people do. So there's that. There's that. But this is all very familiar. Like I said, over 3 years ago, she started the same stuff when she was on Pathos, and she changed her subject matter so drastically from raising a child with chronic health problems without the benefit of God to all this attacking. Now, Todd did say something that made me laugh really hard this evening. He said she needs Jesus. He said she needs Jesus. I couldn't believe it. He started talking about how she needs faith in God. And it probably wouldn't hurt her to have that. But I just like how he just kind of says what's on his mind. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting the same results. KJ needs to look in the mirror and realize she's a common denominator. She's a common denominator in all of this. I mean, who else do you know that has a Reddit with 10,000 subscribers that are all lined up against her? I don't know of anybody else. My son was talking about her before I'd ever brought him up to him and saying, "Who is this lady rocking around with a diaper on?" Oh, that's KJ. Mermaid, I don't know how you actually worked with her. Toxic people in the workplace just make things so miserable, unfortunately. Mermaid, she did. The whole time I worked with her, she complained about every other writer on Pathos. And you have to understand, Pathos pays by hit numbers. So while you're working with other people, you're actually competing against them for the same eyeballs on the page. And here's the thing I'm going to tell you about Pathos non-religious. Okay, I participated on all the back channels when I was writing for Pathos. I never had problems, but with one or two Pathos other authors, not with a whole pantheon of them. And I didn't complain. I just stuck my nose to the grindstone and did what I needed to do. And I moderated a few things in the back channels. So all she ever did was complain. She bitched about Hemet, the friendly atheist, and there is nothing to gripe about him. Her complaints all centered around the fact that our editor, Dale McGovern, or is it McGowan? I can't remember. I'm having a late night. Anyway, she would complain continually about Dale not giving her strokes and positive reinforcement or compliments. We were not a complimentary, film-friendly bunch in that group. We were, there was some friendly competition going on. A lot of people were writing for Pathos. Like I said, competition for eyeballs on the page. Nobody there was a cuddly, super friendly, over the top, "Oh, you poor thing, you're writing so well." Nobody was like that. We were kind of a grumbly, grumpy bunch. And so there was that. At least I knew what you meant. I get like that too. So she was expecting this hard bunch of writers. There weren't very few female writers on the Pathos non-religious spectrum. There were very few. She was expecting compliments and strokes and wasn't getting any behind the scenes. And that was killing her. And I would just say, well, you know, if you're not getting compliments, don't feel like you're the lone stranger, because a lot of us don't. And that's what I would tell her, trying to, you know, settle her down on that, because it's, like I said, it's traditionally not a very warm and fuzzy, friendly bunch. And nobody was busy stroking anybody's ego. Everybody kind of knew who they were and what they were going for. There was none of this, "Oh, poor, pitiful me, nobody compliments me" crap going on. So every time she would say that, I would just kind of jaw dropped. It's like, why are you writing if you expect, this is what you expect? You expect to be complimented and fawned over and feted by your fellow writers. That is never going to happen. That's just not the kind of guys these guys are. And that's okay. But it's not okay if that's your big thing. So when she switched over to writing about the free birth movement, the anti vaxxers, she started writing about jelly juice, Jillian Epperly. She started watching Dr. Phil's 6 months ago, before that, videos on Jillian Epperly. And she started just writing these articles and going after her all the time. And Jillian didn't take it real well. She threatened to sue her and tried to sue her through small claims court a number of times. She did want to be the center of attention. You cannot have that kind of ego in a writer's group because people are always going to call you on your bull crap in a writer's group. If you do something that is less than optimum, you're going to get called on that too. And I don't have a problem with that well, actually, I don't have a problem with that at all, because you're going to have some people are just going to, you could write a book even better than Ernest Hemingway's on your Pathos blog, and there's somebody who was going to say something. So you learn pretty quickly that compliments and or criticism is relatively meaningless. Most of us up there were mature enough to know who we were and where we were going with our careers and our lives. She was not. She was not grounded. It was a huge ego. She has a huge ego that was so fragile. So I'm kind of curious now, what do you think the next step is going to be with all of this? Do you think she's going to fly apart? Are we going to see a nervous breakdown of some sort? Is she going to start tweeting insanely again? I saw during Tati, she was actually crying on camera a number of times. And I actually felt kind of sorry for her. Even if it was a self-made hell she put herself in. You just don't do so many of those things. What was she like in high school? I shudder to think, Angela. I don't know what she was like in high school, but I have to think that it was probably not pleasant. And she probably was not one of the cool kids. Now, I was not one of the cool kids either. I mean, in my elementary and junior high school years, I was something of a teacher's pet. When I got to high school, I was just bored with it all. I was ready to go off to college, and I could not be bothered to pay attention or anything else. And made decent enough grades to be able to get through, but I was never one of the popular cool kids. And I don't think she was either. But I think instead of being okay with that, she's now projecting that into her adult life on farther and farther, trying to be. He did coin her problematic. And a lot of people have been saying that about her. We've said for a long time now, problematic behavior for at least a year. Well, let me go back. Let's see, I entered the KJ Truther community around late May 2020, courtesy of Steve McRae. And even then we were saying it's the problem with her is her problematic behavior. And again, I'm going to say that it's not her personally, it's the behavior. If she were tomorrow to wake up and say, you know what, I'm only going to do things that I can source, things that I know where they came from, and I'm going to stop all the I have an insider, that there are a lot of us that would say, okay, great, and would be really happy about that and would skip off into the sunset, never thinking about her again. I know I would. I hate all this. I hate thinking about her. I hate all the drama, even though I got to admit, tonight's Todd Chrisley podcast, there was a lot of Schadenfreude going on. I was giggling some. There were times I was gasping, and times I was just busting out laughing at Todd. She is going to break down. Todd Chrisley won't stay silent. He will snap back at every tweet, stream, video, every little comment. She can't take it and will unravel. It won't be pretty. Heather, I hope that does not happen. I hope that she has a dark night of the soul, that she goes up that mountain, she sees the elephant, whatever your favorite euphemism is for having a moment of epiphany. I hope that's my hope and prayer is that she sees this and realizes, wait a minute, I have to change something or I'm going to lose everything. And she makes that change. She apologizes to him for speculating on his sexuality and all the other nasty things she said. I think that if she did that, he might actually back off. He says he's a Christian, and if he's a Christian, he believes in forgiveness and second chances. So that might actually work for her if she were to do that. But I don't think that her extremely fragile, large ego is going to let her do that. I think it's going to take her cracking up, losing the husband, losing the house, losing everything to make that happen. And I don't wish that on my worst enemy. I don't even wish that on people that I'm dismissive of on YouTube, other YouTubers. There aren't very many of those. There's just a handful. I'm like, whatever. Lisa, that's what I'm thinking. I'm thinking mental illness is behind all this and is driving this. And I really hope she would get some type of treatment. That's the only good thing I can say about her cracking up. If she falls apart, and again, like I said, I hope she does not, because that would be just tragic on so many levels. But one of the good things about hitting rock bottom, and I can say this because I've had this happen to me in my life, is you get to look up. And when you can look up, you can get help and you can be better. Whether your problem was physical, mental, whatever, drugs, alcohol, gambling, petting weasels, whatever you can come up with. Once you hit that bottom and you start on looking up, it's a whole different ball game. And I pray that so for her. I don't think she sees anything wrong with what she has said or done. She doesn't think she's done wrong. It's all an attack on her. She needs treatment. Heather, I'm afraid that's the case with her. I feel pretty certain that she cannot see what she's done wrong without a lot of therapy. Mermaid in the ICU. Well, yes and no about it's part of the job. Okay. I'm going to talk a little bit about pathos in my own journey. And I know this from talking to others, and I don't take the claim of journalist. I've always said that I was more of a daily columnist on the beat of toxic religion, particularly in the quiverful world. Um, the thing about being sued and being a writer, America, you can sue anybody for anything that they say. I mean, that's just a reality, whether it's thrown out of court or not, and whether you're granted more than a temporary restraining order or not. It all just it all boils down to, the seriousness of the offenses. I've seen people sue for crazy things. I mean, and get thrown out of court with everybody's laughing and going, boy, you just wasted $20,000. Anybody who writes will occasionally get a cease and desist and a threat of a lawsuit. I've had a pile of them myself. And she's always made claims about Patheos lawyers. Patheos lawyers are only interested in making sure that somebody is not jacking your content without linking back to Patheos and giving you the credit for it. They're there to make sure that nobody does plagiarism of their articles. That's a lot of that's not their entire reason for being there, but that's a lot of it. So every now and then you'll get a cease and desist. Sometimes they'll come in through Patheos. Sometimes they'll come directly to you. And you can look at it. You can look at it with your lawyer. You can look at it with somebody from Patheos and say, well, what do you think? A lot of times they'll say, look, if you take this word or this name out and republish it, you'll be fine. Occasionally they'll say, this person's on fire. You might want to take down those 2 or 3 things you said about them. Sometimes. And all the time that I wrote for Patheos, which was almost 10 years, was like 9 years and 9 months, some ridiculous time like that. I only paid attention to 2 cease and desist and completely complied with them. Why? Number one of them, and I hate to admit this, But I did do this. I got so fed up with this one very toxic male, good patriarch that still writes to this day. And he writes things like women have no rights, husbands should control all money. He was bragging about controlling his disabled wife by withholding medication, which is abuse. And so is withholding money. That's financial abuse. So he was bragging about how he abuses the women in his family, but he says it's not abuse, it's being a godly patriarch. So he said a lot of really nasty, horrible things. All of this information fell into my lap courtesy of somebody else who'd done all the research. When I looked back at it and saw all of it, I was like, wow. I only used one part of that information was passed on to me. I used his last name, his real last name. That has been a couple other places online, and he had a Facebook under that real last name instead of his writing nom de plume. He sent a cease and desist to Pathos and said he was going to sue me and all this crap. And what I did was I just removed his real name. But I was kind of sneaky in how I did it. I did it on a Friday night, knowing that nobody was going to be in the offices at Pathos until Monday morning. So everybody that wanted to see it saw it. I did not post his address. I didn't even say what town he's from. I didn't post his church. I didn't post the names of his children. I didn't post the names of his ex-wife, his current wife, or any of that. Even though someone had given me the information, basically what I did was I to this day, I'm still sitting on the information. So she does crack. She does cry on camera. You are right, Bermuda's Triangle. I think she does get some kind of pleasure from that. It's terrible. It's like drinking poison can't be stopped, compulsive behavior. You're right. And I think that the attention it gets her is what she wants. She wants that attention. So she's getting that. And she loves to play victim, most definitely. Always. And so the other one that I took seriously was from someone who's mentally unbalanced, who I'm not even going to mention. I'm not going to mention their name. I'm not going to hint who they are. They sent me a cease and desist to take down a handful of things that they said were about them on Twitter that were not about them in any way, shape, or form, plus a few things that were about them. And I just went ahead and took those things down after talking to my attorney here in Costa Rica, because she had to be served here in Costa Rica, this person did. And I know she spent a boatload of money to do that, which made me laugh. So I complied and I took all that stuff down on the advice of my Costa Rican lawyer, because it was obvious this is not a well woman. And I didn't want to add to that. I didn't want to add to the mental problems. So there's that. I am waiting for Jim Bob to come after her. And it was not Jim Bob that I'm talking about. I am waiting for Jim Bob Duggar to sue her. I'm thinking as more lawsuits roll in, he probably will. And how many lawsuits has she been embroiled in? Well, Jilly Juice tried to sue her a couple times through small claims court, and it was kicked out of court because you cannot sue somebody for defamation in small claims court. It just does not work that way. Small claims court is when you're suing because somebody owes you money. You lent your buddy down the street $50 and he signed a promissory note and he never paid. Or you hire Bubba's Carpeting to put in carpeting and they put it in wrong or something. It's that sort of thing. It's not really meant for things like defamation cases. It's meant for small matters. And there's a dollar cap on it too that's very small. But, okay, so there's a couple of Jilly Juice ones. She's had a pile of cease and desist. Like she said, everybody who writes gets cease and desist sometimes. And sometimes we issue them if somebody steals our content. Or somebody starts stalking us and we start issuing those cease and desist. So it goes both ways. She turned around and tried to sue Sherelle for defamation. She had her served with a cease and desist. Sherelle never picked it up. Katie Joyce tried to tweet cease and desist before to various people. I'm not even sure that's legal. and she's tried to email them, and they haven't been delivered, is my understanding. So there's that. So those are the things she's been involved in. She took out a temporary restraining order against Steve McRae. And this was right around the time that I'd started being friendly with Steve, and he was telling me his little story of her. And she could not prove her what she was saying about him to get a permanent restraining order because she was making allegations. She was using the Me Too movement to make allegations against Steve that were untrue because Steve was in California. She's in Minnesota. That's a long way. There were witnesses to what happened that said that it was not true at all. So, yeah, Steve is a decent guy, Lisa. He really is. He's caught this thing. So basically, it got so nasty, and she was claiming she was going to sue him and Sherelle, that what Steve did was he settled with her. They signed a non-disclosure valid for 1 year, and she had to drop the restraining order. And I'm wondering if that's what she's after with the restraining order with Little Miss Noble and with the other person she sent it to, Little Miss Noble's friend Dustin. I'm wondering if she's going to try, if they're going to fight it and they're all going to end up with NDA. It may well be. So those are the ones she's done. Then Tati turned around and sued her for defamation of character. And that went on for months and months, as you all know. All kinds of crazy documents were thrown back and forth. There was legal shade thrown. It was actually kind of funny to watch all that. And I got to say, I have enormous respect for Salty that he didn't lose it, because I would have lost my temper with that. And he managed to keep a pretty good attitude, I think, about all this. But he got her to roll on Clark Swanson, which was the whole purpose of the lawsuit in the first place. Then Tati turned around and sued Clark Swanson using that information, citing KJ's sworn statement. Clark Swanson turned around and sued Tati and alleged that everything Katie Joy said was a lie. That's what it says in the legal paperwork. And I'm expecting to see at some point after Tati and Clark settle, for Clark to hit Katie Joy with a defamation of character suit. I think it's gonna happen. I keep hearing rumblings that Jim Bob Duggar sent her cease and desist. I don't know. I can't verify that. I'm shocked that he has not sued her at this point, even with Josh's troubles, because she is constantly making new content on the Duggars when making mountains out of molehills. A Duggar sneezes, and then she'll write a big article. Well, not write a big article, do her post, her post on how COVID's taken over the Duggars, for example. That's just my opinion. I'm trying to illustrate how she can take a little teeny tiny piece of information and just blow it up, because that's what she does. That's her MO, and it always has been her MO. So you got the three Tati Westbrook cases. One is settled, two ongoing. Todd Chrisley has sent her a notice that a lawsuit will be filed in spoilization. Is that what it was? Basically, to quote Emily D. Baker, don't delete your beep stuff. So he's saying the papers are coming. So there's that. That would be number 3 active. Somebody I know, and I know them well, is getting ready to file another defamation character lawsuit against her. I've also heard rumblings that Sherelle's World may do the same thing. They've talked about it. So that could be as many as 5, 6, or 7 lawsuits that she'd be involved with in a short period of time. Her 10-minute videos of the Duggars. Yeah. Who's going to sue her next? Said who? Yeah, I'm waiting to. And she does. She's got them coming out of the rear end. So I'm thinking that Everybody who has ever been defamed by her, this is your time, this is your opportunity to file maybe a class action lawsuit if enough people get together. And I am thinking that here's what I'm thinking Todd's going to ask for. He hasn't said this yet. This will be the smart thing, but her YouTube channel. I know BX Beast Boy, who I sometimes like, and sometimes he annoys me, and I'll say he's sad fishing. Is always talking about cancel culture. And cancel culture, I kind of understand where he's coming from, but at the same time, the marketplace has a duty to throw out the bad actors in it, the ones that are doing things for the wrong reasons. And if her channel were to be canceled, that would just be the marketplace righting itself and doing away with the detritus, as far as I'm concerned. Chronically Bee Queen? I believe so, because YouTube channels can be valued. I don't know if they can be sold or not, but websites can. Domain names can. Every year I used to buy between 10 and 40 domain names of various types that I thought might be popular in the future. And I've only sold 2 or 3 of them at market value. If they went up, I can make all the money back and more. LB would have a case, I would think, because she said a lot of nasty stuff about her. Hey, Noelle. So, yeah, I think Tati opened the door, because before she was claiming that she was untouchable, which no one is untouchable. Like I said, I told you about that person trying to sue me here in Costa Rica, and it was funny because I tell everybody when they send their cease and desist, either yes, no, or take a flying leap. Because being a resident here in Costa Rica, I'm bound by the laws here. So if I am writing from here and someone has an objection, they can't sue me in the States. They have to take me to court here, which has totally different laws and is very difficult. To even get a judge to issue a writ can cost as much as $100,000. And you've got to find a judge that is sympathetic. You can't just walk around and sue the crap out of people here. It just doesn't work like it does in the States. Yes, Elle was totally slandered. And she said that Discovery had nothing on KJ. I think that Discovery is not going to go well for KJ in the Chrisley lawsuit. Why? Because, first of all, Chrisley, like Tati, has money. He has enough money to have a really good legal team. They're going to turn over every rock and discover everything there is to be known and to use it against her. And if Chrisley does this, I predict that Clark Swanson will take whatever Chrisley has uncovered and use it in his fight with Tati. I just have a feeling about it. So there's that. It's not just LB. I used to have a chart here where I had listed everybody KJ was fighting with. It was a long, long, long list. Tina could sue KJ for defaming her. So could EKC People Suck Aaron. Dottie Morgan probably has a case because she's accused all of them at different times of being masterminds that went after her, particularly trying to say that Steve is some kind of cult leader. We all know that's not true. Yeah, I think Swanson will. I think Swanson will sue her at some point. I just have a weird feeling about it. Yeah, and the thing is, and here's the other thing about her. Everything, yeah, I think she doesn't even know what a cult actually is. Everything that I own here, well, everything I own, actually, not just here, is held through a corporation. You know why people do that? I started doing it probably 4 or 5 years ago because if you have your assets in a corporation, they're held by the corporation. Unless the corporation is being sued directly for something the corporation did, somebody suing you is bound by whatever they decide your worth is. No one watches friendly drama. Yeah, I know if the tea isn't hot, it's not good. Bermuda's Triangle, I have had to yeah, I've had to think about that a lot because I don't like talking about her. Now, if something like this comes up, I will talk about her, but I'm not going to invent every day a new crisis to talk about like somebody does with Douglas, like she's doing right now with Jana. Yeah, she's claiming that Jana's about to get married. She's claimed that Jana was a lesbian and was in love with her best friend Laura. She's made all kinds of claims that all contradict themselves in some of the stuff that she's writing about. And I'm not writing about why I keep saying writing. It's late. So that's what's going on with this lawsuit. And as much as I thought Chrisley was dismissive, silly little man in Atlanta, I can see where he's actually not at all that. He's actually pretty smart, even though he's got the mouth on it. The mouth of the South is what I started calling him. So everything I own is protected. The Costa Rican government says I'm worth $75. So that's all anybody could ever sue me for here. Um, she has mentioned before that the house is in somebody else's name. And I don't know if they have additional assets, but I know that the way that online assets are valued, that channel would have a dollar amount value. It would be considered. And when that happens, the drama is irresistible, Noelle. My husband has asked me not to talk about her, and I generally try not to. But part of it with me, and you should see, I've got copious notes I've written. Copious. I look back at the day, they're like 148 pages with the idea of one day doing a book about all this, because this is just the craziest thing I've ever seen. Lisa, he most definitely has. So I don't know what's going to happen with that. Noelle, my kids set me down when I was in the States and want to know who this Katie Joy woman is that I'm always babbling about these streams because they will watch my streams and said, what the hell are you talking about, Mom? So my son knew only because he'd seen the diaper picture on not LOL Cal, but it's one of those sites that he it might have been Reddit for all I know, but he'd seen the picture. He knew what I was talking about when I started saying the woman wearing the diaper. No, well, I don't know. Scripts are hard. I've tried writing scripts before, and scripts are hard. They really are. They're a whole different art form. I started keeping the notes with the idea of doing something or else. And it's funny because I was writing a true crime book about the Carol Ann Cole murder, but I've put that aside. I'm no longer writing on it because I've seen firsthand some of what happens when people do true crime and the whole family is just hurt again and again and again. And I know from talking to Janine, not Janine, what am I saying? Jeannie, her sister, that there is a lot of pain and anguish in that family, and I don't want to add to it by writing the book. I did write the series of articles on Pathos in an attempt to get anybody that has any information on the death of Carol Ann Cole to come forward. Nothing happened. I think that the Bossier Parish Sheriff's Department has seriously dropped the ball on that case. Oh, really? No, I did not know that. I did not know that. Angela, I'm kind of curious to see how that one's going to play out. Andrew Cuomo. His brother is on CNN, and for a long time there, Andrew Cuomo was on CNN every night talking about the beer bug, talking about COVID, and how New York City was going about their COVID. Now, I'm curious. if it turns out that Andrew Cuomo is guilty of all the stuff that are accusing him of, including fudging COVID rates in nursing homes and things, and he was on CNN doing this with his brother, what responsibility does CNN have? And can they hold the brother at all responsible and say, hey, maybe you should step back for a while until all of this, till the dust settles? I'm really curious. Oh, the violence going on. Well, the threatened and perceived violence. I don't think there's any real violence going on. But like I've said about KJ in the past, she has certain go-tos, and she's done some of them this week. One of them is if anybody's criticizing her, she makes posts about her cats and dogs and the problems she's had with them. And then she trots out the son and his medical problems every time. It's a no-fail thing. Shouldn't she have insurance with her business? I think she has to have some, but she needs to shut up the tweets to Todd C tonight too. Yeah. Here's the thing. You don't have to have insurance if you are a creator. You don't have to have insurance. You do need to protect your assets and make sure that they are in such a place and way that nobody can touch them. The nice thing about Costa Rica and investments is they corporations are private. It's just like the Cayman Islands or Switzerland. No information gets out. Nobody can run a database and find you. Everything is protected. A country, but yes, the threats, which I don't actually think have happened. Yes, in the country. And those threats, that poor child has no privacy and no peace in his life. Lisa, he breaks my heart. He really does. And early on, and when I knew her, we talked about his heart surgery. I remember when it happened, and she contacted me from the hospital and told me how it went. And I was thankful that it had gone so well, and he was recovering so well. I have nothing but the best wishes for the child, even for Todd, even not Todd Chrisley, the other Todd, Toad, as everybody calls him. I have nothing but best wishes for him, even though he seems like he might be a little bit on the Nazi side for everything I'm seeing. Can he take her platform? I hope he can. Poor little Vaughn. I hate that all his info is all over of his heart. Right. Yes, I know, Brooke. I don't know if he can take her channel. It seems to me that he can say it is a legal asset and that he could go for it conceivably. I don't know. I know that there have been YouTubers that have been canceled over all kinds of things. I don't know how she still has a platform because she has violated a number of the platform rules for YouTube. You know, the rest of us are getting slapped on the wrist left and right, and our videos are demonetized frequently. And she seems to just plow on through and get monetized every time. And I, for the life of me, cannot fathom it. She may have a business license. I would be surprised at that. It did take a lot for Oniason to come down. It took Chris Hansen. And I'm wondering, I've tweeted at him a number of times about her. I am wondering if at some point we're going to see a documentary on this hot mess. It's pretty confusing. It does seem like there's so much anger and conflict in that house. The vibe must really be difficult. I have a feeling the tension in that household could be cut with a knife. And that's not healthy for any child to grow up in the middle of that kind of tension. You know, it may be time for her just to stop working altogether and let Todd go out and get a good job. And for him to pay the bills and for her to take care of the child, particularly since they're having such a hard time getting nursing staff right now. And I'm hoping she comes to her senses, that she apologizes to Todd Chrisley, not Todd. Well, maybe she needs to apologize to him too. I don't know. Maybe she does. I don't know. Yes, before COVID started, Todd worked for one of the big cable companies. I don't remember if he was an engineer, an installer, something. So, but he had a decent job. Children in vlogging, 8 passengers and other channels. Happy it's a start. Yes, Bermuda's Triangle. That needs to not happen. That does need to happen. It needs to be exposed. I mean, that's one of the things I have always held against the Duggars. I still hold against the Rodriguezes and some of the fundamentalist families. They exploit their children. They do not let the child have a childhood. The child is always doing some chore the mother or the father should be doing, not just helping out with the household, but actually parenting and doing everything else. So there's that. I think the exploitation of children on YouTube and other places needs to stop. I thought the same thing, Brooke. He really wants to have a relationship with his child. And I don't blame him. And as a mother myself of older children, I can tell you there are going to be those times when you fall out with your children and you may not speak for a month or two. Those things happen. He was defending her and he wanted her to know that KJ is not her friend. It was sweet. So, children not on YouTube. People need to stay out of other people's family quarrels, which clearly she did not. Noelle, you were wise. My kids were already on Facebook when I joined. I was reluctant to join Facebook because I didn't want everybody having my information. And now I'm embarrassed when I go back and I look at tweets from 12 and 13 years ago when I was still sort of kind of drinking the Kool-Aid. It's some of the things that I've said. It's like I wish I could go back, and I should go back and edit all that funny stuff out because it's still there. And when I see it, I just like go, no, 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 no. Okay. And I just realized what time it is. My poor husband's in the other room, probably wondering when I'm going to shut up so he can come in here. He hates to come in here when I'm live streaming, and I'm not really sure. Not really sure. It is good to protect your minors, and we had our own kind of little, I'm going to say, wake up call when our kids were online as minors. When my daughter was 14, she saw somebody's Zanga blog that had written down the names of 200 kids they didn't like from our town. She made a copy of that, brought it to school. Somebody else snatched it out of her hand and made a copy out of it. And the next thing you know, there's a rumor going around the middle school and the high school that there's a hit list and everybody's going to get executed and somebody's got a gun. And it was not that at all. It was just a blog post the poor girl made saying that she didn't like those people. She didn't threaten them in any way, shape, or form. And that's really the scary thing for me about the internet. And this goes back to her too with KJ, particularly now that she's making the claims about Todd Chrisley that she made about Steve, Tina, and everybody else. Nat, Little Miss Noble. She's got a laundry list of people she's accused of being the hackers that are sending her death threats. No, well, I know that, and that always gives me shivers now. I would no longer post anything like that. Too easy to access Facebook. My son at the age 15 was sent threats and horrific graphic real pics of bodies, so sick and threats. FBI was here and was handled immediately. So I know some things are not true that she says. The FBI things she says are lies. I mean, they're just huge lies. That's not how the FBI works. That's how she's claiming. That's not at all how they work. Now, they work on stuff like what you're saying, and they show up as immediate, and they take care of it. Julie, I would have to research that. I Not sure she has a business license. Well, I think there's no telling unless the person that she says that she sent the restraining orders to actually speaks out. I don't know. And like I said, this is all my opinion. Don't sue me. I'm just giving my opinion on this. Um, and I am allowed to have an opinion and thoughts and all that. So, hi, KJ. Um, and so there's no telling. New court docs and new stuff I've not seen. Yeah, I saw some of that. I don't necessarily believe that she's filed everything that she has said that she has filed. Brooke, we all do. It's late. That's why I gotta get my butt off here and go to bed, hopefully. And I hope I can sleep. And I hope the cat, she's so sweet, but she's so irritating in the mornings. She will try to wake me up on purpose, and sometimes that's not a pretty sight. She starts biting me and trying to bite me in different places to wake me up. Yeah, no, well, that's what I was thinking too. And I think that if she did have real restraining orders, the whole goal is to get the people that she's claiming she sent them to shut up. I know at one point she was hinting that she sent one to Tina. I don't think that's true. I think that Tina probably would have mentioned it had she got one. I know Steve did not get a new one. Various other people didn't get them. Yeah, and I heard that too. So, and I understand that they're fighting it, whoever got the restraining orders. Oh, Brooke, I know what that's like. I live my a life according to these animals waking me up and biting me or trying to get me to pet them, different things, or feed them. So there's that. Anyway, it's late. My brain is starting to not function. So I guess I should make it a second attempt to sleep. Too much caffeine, too late in the day. Okay, you guys, if you haven't heard the Chrissy thing, I'm going to put the link in the description below. I know it was on Spotify, and that's where I heard it. If you want to hear him talk about her specifically, um, if you want to talk about him, if you want to listen to him talk about her specifically, it's at 44 minutes in. Okay, you guys, have a good evening, morning, lunchtime, whatever it is where you are. And I'm going to try and sleep again.